Welcome back to the Secret Underground Lair. We're continuing work on our Gluckstein cabinet, our Gluckstein inspired cabinet. And what I've done now is taken the legs out of the clamps, and I've just run them through the table saw on one edge to kind of get that one glued side evened up. So now we can cut these to exactly 2 inches in the other 2 dimensions. So, having made that one cut, I'm now just going to flip them over like so and run them through the saw to get us exactly 2 inches in this dimension. So I want 2 inches here. I may flip them over and do it this way as well, but I'll probably allow just a little bit more than 2 inches so that we can run this stuff through the surface planer and get a nice smooth edge on every surface. So in this dimension will probably be a little bit more than 2. I'll play that by ear. But I think, likely it's going to be slightly more than 2 inches in this dimension so we can run it through the surface planer on one of those edges. Anyway, I'll set the camera up on time lapse and we'll go through all these cuts. So these guys are nearly a perfect 2 inches. What I'm going to do now is set these, run these guys through the surface planer, and I'm going to do all 4 sides of these guys. So it's going to be a little bit tricky to make sure that I get everything done right, but I'm going to get everything down to the same size. I have 2 legs that are slightly thicker that I'll get down to these to this size before running them through. So a little bit of cutting on these 2 guys, and then to the surface planer for everything. So here's our pieces after running through the surface planer, and they turn out to be a 1/16 inch shy of 2 inches. So I'm okay with that measurement. However, the thing to observe out of all this is that although all this wood came from the same physical tree, you can see the variations in color through this wood. And, from one piece to another, this piece and this piece are night and day, quite literally, light and dark. And what I'm wanting to do is make sure that the legs on the front of the cabinet are as consistent as possible. So these 3 legs are going to be the ones that are on the front of the cabinet. These will be on the rear of the cabinet. We're likely going to have a very light finish on this piece. So it's not, the variation in color is not something I'm going to be able to hide. So we'll take advantage of these guys being very close in color, and these guys will be in the back where they won't be quite so visible. It's still very interesting and beautiful wood on its own, right? But the variety is quite something. If you set those 3 up that way, it might look a little better on the back. Anyway, that's where we are at the moment. So now I'm going to start considering the facing and for the framing. So that's going to be these pieces here need to be cut, and of course all across here. I'm going to make these out of plywood, 3/4 inch plywood, and they'll be cut to length. We're going to wind up putting a little mortise in here, so these are going to be a half tenon. Going into a mortise on the leg at either end, Same thing with these guys. There'll be a half tenon, so it'll go into a mortise on the legs on this side. And then we're going to have a dado that we want to cut in the end pieces here, that this end panel is going to sit in on the legs. So this whole joinery down in here is going to be kind of interesting. We've got a dado on this face with a mortise on the end of it. And we're also going to need to make some accommodation for the floor of the cabinet that goes through the whole piece. So it's going to be a little bit interesting, and I'll probably sketch out something so you can see what I'm talking about. In fact, I'm going to sketch it out just so that I know what I'm talking about. I'll come back in a minute when I have that sketch ready. So this is a quick sketch of what our face piece is going to be for the frame, and this represents kind of the lower left end. So it's a 2-inch piece that'll have a dado, or sorry, a half tenon cut out at the end here. And I recognize that this is a little bit difficult to visualize, so I actually cut a little piece. That's what it'll look like. So our end panel is going to sit down in here. This is the tenon that will be inserted into the leg, and then we'll have another piece that will be glued and pin nailed onto this face here to support the shelf, the lower shelf. Well, the floor, sorry, the floor of the cabinet. So I'm going to go do a little bit more measuring to make sure I get the length of these pieces correct. Then we can cut the 2-inch strips that we need for the end pieces and the front and rear lower faces. The top face is going to be just 1 inch thick. Actually, I'm probably going to make that 1.25 inches. And I'm expecting to use 3/4 inch plywood for the end panels, the floor, the shelves, and the top. And I want 3/4 inch material for the end panels because we're going to be supporting a shelf. And I want to have some strong material to support that shelf. So I don't think 1/2 inch will do it. 1/4 inch is right out. So we'll probably wind up just getting another piece of 3/4 inch plywood, maple on both sides, and we'll go from there. Right now, time for a bite of lunch. All right, we are now set up to cut our strips here for our facing. What I'm going to do is going to cut 2 pieces at 2 inches for the left and right ends on the lower. Then I'm going to cut 4 pieces out of this to do the lower facings back and front. Then I'm going to adjust the fence to do 1 1/4, take 2 more off this piece and take 4 off this piece. And if I don't have quite enough for this piece, then I have another piece there we'll use. So I'll put you on time lapse while I make all these cuts. So that's all our facing cuts done to width. I'll need to cut these now to length, so I'm going to double check my measurement on that. And then we'll start making all these various tenon and rabbet cuts on the facing pieces. The upper pieces don't need the rabbet, but they do need a actually, they do need a rabbet and tenon, so they don't need this little shoulder on one side. That's the only difference. So let me double check my measurements, be right back, and we'll start making these cuts, cutting them to length and then cutting all the rabbets and tenons. So our facing pieces on the front and back of the cabinet are 28.5 inches. So I've got this set up, and I'm going to cut them all at once. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the end pieces. I also cut an extra piece that'll go down the middle between the two middle legs, just to support the floor from the underside. Now, before I get too far ahead of myself, I have marked the pieces here. So this is the lower side face. So we're going to cut a tenon out of each end. And in fact, I'm just going to focus on the tenon portions of all the lower pieces at the moment. Then I come back and cut out the dado that will be used to accommodate the side on the lower pieces. There's no dado on the lower front pieces. There is a dado, a little different, on the lower back pieces. So you can start to see how this is getting a little bit complicated and easily confusing. So I'm just going to, as I said, focus on the tenons on the lower pieces first. Then I'll come back and we'll deal with the other bits. Alright, we have the tenons cut on all of the pieces. Off camera I did the rear pieces, so you saw me in the last little clip doing all of the front pieces, or lower rather, the lower pieces, and off camera I did the upper pieces. Now for the front, we're good. We don't need to do any additional cutting on the front pieces. They're not going to have any slots or anything necessary to accommodate the sides or the back. However, the side and back pieces do need to be cut. On the rear pieces, we want to, there's going to be a 1/4 inch ply that goes in to form the back of the cabinet, and the side of the cabinet is going to require 3/4 inch ply. So we're going to have to make a different kind of rabbet on the side pieces than we do on the back. So I'm going to focus on the back first. We're putting in a 1/4 inch dado in here, and to do that I've got my blade set a 1/4 inch high, and we're a 1/4 inch away from the fence on the inside edge there. So I'm going to run it through once this way, flip the piece around and run it through again, and that should give me the dado that I want in the middle here. So I'm going to do that for these 4 pieces, the lower rear and the upper rear. Then we'll come back and we'll deal with these guys on the sides. So to cut the rabbet out of our rear pieces, it was 2 passes through the saw, this way, then flip it around, do it that way, and I took 1/8 of an inch at a time, got a 1/4 inch gap there. I went a little bit wider than a 1/4 of an inch, so there was a little piece in the middle that I had to get out, and you saw me fiddling with that, getting that little center section out. Now to do these pieces where we're trying to accommodate a 3/4 inch, we're not cutting a dado, we're actually cutting a rabbet. And it's going to be 1/2 inch on one direction and a 1/4 inch on the other. So I'm putting these pieces through once this way up against the fence, and then I'm going to flip them over this way, actually flip them that way, this way, move the fence over and take out the 1/2 inch. So a couple passes on this. First pass is the same for every piece. The second pass I have to adjust for the upper. They're going to be a little different than the lower. But we'll do that now. All right, we now have all of the frame pieces done and facing done, so we're able to now work on the legs. We need to cut mortises in the legs, and we need to cut rabbets in the legs. But before I do that, I have to get the legs cut to the exact length that we want. So I have on our legs, I've cut off a nice square end. I've lined up the 3 legs together, marked it at 29 1/4, got them clamped together, and I'm just going to run it through the blade here to get us our leg to exact dimension. Now I've already done this to the back legs. These represent the 3 front legs. So the 3 back legs are exactly the same length. The 3 front legs will be exactly the same length. And if between the front and the back I'm off by a 32nd because I didn't get this on the line, it's okay. Okay, those legs are exactly where I want them. Now choosing between the what I want to be the front left and the front right, front center. Just going to go with that. What I kind of marking which leg I want where, kind of depending on the like the orientation of the cabinet where it's going to be sitting in the room. So the best vantage point apparently for this is the front right leg is going to be the most visible. So I'm just going to mark this as front right. This is going to be front center. This is going to be front left. Our 3 front legs have now been marked where I want to put the mortises and the rabbets that are going to be used to accommodate the side panel. In fact, they're not rabbets, they're going to be dados. So look, I'm positioned so that this is the bottom of the foot, or bottom of the leg, and that is the top of the leg. So I got my left leg, my middle leg, and my right leg. And on the left leg, we are going to have a mortise here and a mortise up at the very top. And I had initially marked this dado here. I don't need a dado on this portion of the leg. So glad, I'm marking everything out carefully and double checking and triple checking. So it'll be a mortise here and a mortise at the top. On this side of the leg, there will be a mortise here and a mortise at the top, and I'm going to use the router to cut a 1/2 inch dado all along here, and that will accommodate the side panel. The side panel is going to be a 3/4 inch piece of material, so I'm going to take a 1/4 inch off that. So lots of dadoing and fiddling to get these pieces fitting properly. Our center piece is going to have a mortise here and at the top, and here and at the top. So these mortises are on both sides at a 1/4 inch away from the face of the material. And on the rear, I'm going to have a mortise in the center here and a mortise in the center at the top, and that will go between the front and the back leg and provide some support to the bottom shelf and some support to the top of the cabinet through the middle of the cabinet. So the middle piece has got a different mortising on it than the left and right legs. And of course the right leg, now I've got a mortise here and at the top, and on this back edge here and at the top, and again another channel, another dado to accommodate the back shelf, or the side panel rather. So those are the front legs. Now I have to do the same kind of markup on the back legs, and on the back legs, that mortise on the back legs, I need an additional dado to accommodate the back of the cabinet. So a little bit extra to be done there, and that's going to be a 1/4 inch dado. Still need the same mortises though. So I'm going to mark up those mortises. This is kind of near the end of the day here, so I'm going to call that a video for today. tomorrow will be Mortis Day. And, well, actually the next video will be Mortis Day. I may not have a video tomorrow. But thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Leave comments on what you think of the build so far. And I'll see you on the next video.